as part of activities lined up for the Social Media Week, an annual conference now considered Africa's largest digital media and technology event. Fidelity Bank plc organized a lecture titled "The Digital Takeover: How Millennials Are Changing the Financial Landscape." The event, which took place on Friday, 2nd March 2018 at the Landmark Event Center, had in attendance a team of panelists who provided ideas, trends, insights, and inspiration to help people and businesses understand how to achieve more in a hyper-connected world. The event, which was moderated by producer, radio and television host Folu Storms, had a team of panelists which include CEO Ebony Live Television, Mo Abudu, Bolahon Joshua, Chief Operations and Communications Officer, Fidelity Bank PLC, Ndidi Wunili, Founder, Leap Africa and Co-Founder Ace Foods, Shola Akinlade, Co-Founder, CEO Paystax, Lai Funsho, Head Mobile and Web Payments, Fidelity Bank PLC, Oluwole Oyeniran, Technology and Digital, Deloitte and Touch, Sam Onyemelukwe, Managing Director, Trace Niger, and Bayo Adekombi, Chief Transformation Officer, MTN Nigeria. The panelists, in a thought-provoking discussion, highlighted and provided ways to facilitate the digital revolution in the technology ecosystem of Nigeria and on the global space. CEO Ebony Live TV, Mo Abudu, said in her remarks that dealing with millennials is akin to how a parent nurtures a child. She said, as a parent, dealing with young ones can be quite overwhelming because their level of IQ is rapid and spontaneous. They want their issues solved instantaneously and are oftentimes impatient. Speaking about Ebony Live TV, Mo Abudu said millennials are very interesting to work with compared with the old generations. According to Mo Abudu, with advancement in technology, there has been a huge advantage in communication through the diverse use of the social media. Mo Abudu therefore encouraged millennials to seek life outside social media. According to her, the youths must know that there's life outside the social media, so he advised them to go out and make a difference rather than airing their views only through the social media.
But when you look at our millennials today, they don't think the way we think. Now, yes, we may look young, we may feel young, but their sense of, some of them were born knowing that there is something called social media, knowing there is something called Instagram. As they're born, it exists. Some of them are having their own pages the minute that they're grown up, the minute that they're born. So the reality is that we look at our age band, and you look at their age band, and we're trying to find that medium where we can say that, is there a connection? Can we connect to this group called the millennials? So when we started our journey with Ebony Live Television, it was pretty much about finding a space and saying to ourselves that we know that there exists this particular generation, but who is speaking to this generation? Who is actively engaging with this generation and giving them the platform whereby they can communicate, they can perform, they can be at their best? And it's interesting when you just look at the entire range of activities that your generation are getting involved in and are doing, which totally defines who you are. And it's so different to my generation of 50-something years old. And it's mind-boggling, really, when you think about all the things that you're able to create with sometimes just simply having a mobile phone changes you can run your entire businesses with just a phone, rather than us that we're going to have to rent an office and have a fax machine and have a telephone and just have all kinds of things that are going on in our lives. So I think the big difference is technology. And I think that's why we have an event like this here today.
Mr. Bayo Adekombi, Chief Transformation Officer, MTN Nigeria, in his remarks said millennials search for lifestyle and are desirous of platforms. He said marketers must take time to understand gaps in the new market. He added that millennials must take advantage of the new society they must also take charge of their lives and define it in ways that suit them.
On the fact that we got to take charge, we got to bring something compelling to the table. Now, if you look at a company like MTN, two things we've done. We've created a platform where anybody, anywhere can drop content. And then we've also created a software platform called API, where whatever idea you have, you can play with it and see what it can make. Now, if I look at products like MTN Comedy or our large array of value-added services, there's so many young students who are identifying gaps in the market and are feeling it. I think it's a question, like everybody has said, take time to understand gaps in the market and feel it. It's as simple as students who are working on chatbots and looking at what are gaps consciously. Look at things around you. What are things that people are concerned about? Bring it to a big company. Be sure we are all looking for next big ideas. I can tell you that. And that's why a company like MTN will create a transformation unit, because we want to be in touch with the market. Any idea, MTN is ready, and I'm sure Fidelity is also ready. The second thing I want to talk about, speaking to volunteering and the question that the young lady over there raised around, not be given opportunity and all that. I need to tell you there's some things I've seen about millennials in Nigeria. I actually drive an NGO called Data Science Nigeria, where I mentor a lot of data scientists. A lot of them do not even want to work in structured organizations. They are creating massive ideas that companies in the US and the UKs are buying. I have people that are mentor who makes $5 million a month consulting for companies, and they wake up anytime. And I tell you, that is the biggest opportunity you have as a millennial, to take charge of your life and define it. And if by adventure you find yourself in an organization, see yourself as an intrapreneur. You are there not just to collect salary, but to create idea that's a breakthrough idea. I think it's important we think that way. And the more we think that way, the more our voice will become louder, because our idea make business sense. And there is nobody who is seated here, who sits on a board, who cannot identify good ideas. Just come with something that makes sense and we'll go with you. Thank you.
Shola Akilade, co-founder, CEO of Paystacks, in his remarks on the behavioral pattern of millennials, said many young people are becoming a force to reckon with, adding that they're the new CEOs who take over the digital space.
2 years down the line, we've seen millennials in the world doing over 3 billion naira monthly, saving on piggy bank, going on Taxify, buying on supermarts.ng, their groceries, and all that. So the thinking is that, or the patterns is that, the first pattern I see is that the average CEO is changing. You know, I look at my top 10 customers at Paystack, and just maybe 2 or 3 CEOs are wearing ties and suits. You know, the average CEO is now wearing a shirt or using an iPad and all that. Now, the second trend we see is that young people, like you mentioned, like I would say they don't care. You know, like the older generation, like to take money out of their pockets, they don't want it. They have to be the ones to give it to you. But now, we get on Taxify, we come down, and you get a debit alert. You're like, okay, no worries. You know, the older people, when they do that, they scream, they email, guys, how did you take this money out of our pockets? How? Why? How? You know, so just seeing this trend of young people becoming a force is actually changing the way finances are happening. And then the older people actually are now shifting too. So we see older people are now going on Sin1 TV, Roku TV, doing subscriptions and doing all that. So I'll just say that young people are driving this trend, and the older people are now actually having to follow us.
Bolahan Joshua, Chief Operations and Communications Officer, Fidelity Bank PLC, observed that rapid advancement in technology has resulted in a shift in consumer behavior. He noted also that the session's theme was germane. He said millennials are transforming the banking industry by demanding extraordinary out-of-the-box solutions and are creating upgraded digital services. And these exceed their own increasingly high service delivery expectations. Bola and Joshua therefore encouraged the youths, saying that 55% of Fidelity Bank staff are less than 35 years.
Traditionally, for banks, you knew the customers one-on-one. So you are dealing with corporate and commercial clients. When a customer comes into the banking hall, everybody knows him. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon. Now, if you look at this panel, you look at Shola, yeah, he doesn't look like a typical CEO. If you look at us on this panel, you can tell who the millennials are. So, yeah, so typically, you know, customers come into the bank and just by self-recognition, the customer tells you, you know, when I was here before, where is the man that used to be here? You say, because the man who used to sit down here, is he not that Calabar man? You say, yes, sir, yes, sir. Now, times have changed. These guys don't come to the banking hall. A lot of them are interacting with you strictly based on your platforms. You have to determine what they need next, not by talking to them, but by observing what they do using data and trends. So for financial institutions, you have to invest. You have to invest in data analytics. You have to invest in behavioral science. You have to start hiring people that you never used to hire. So right now, you need data scientists. You need a different sort of skill set. So if you come to a bank today and you say, I read accountancy, fantastic. I'm a chartered accountant. That's very good. But what the data scientist can do is a lot more. What the statistician can do is a lot more. So the skill sets are changing. We're trying to adapt. It's a very fast-paced world, and they are very unforgiving. There's a mistake that is made. Before a mistake is made, maybe somebody reports it in a newspaper. Now, before you even know the mistake has been made, someone will call you, Chief, you guys are trending, you know. So it's a total different conversation. Thank you.
Sam Onyemelukwe, Managing Director, Trace Niger, said, to grow in the millennials' lifestyle, you have to be up to date. You must move with the trend and be aware of what's going on around you. He urged the young ones to use the social media platform maximally and research on business plans because employers will only employ employable youths.
The idea that that not only that we can change the world, but we are changing the world by force, right? And I think that's one of the most powerful things that we see. And for a company like us, Trace, I mean, we're a traditional media company, and so as of now, as of recent history, as we stand, really our business is actually business to business. As much as we're seen, you know, as a brand, a big brand, because we're on the TV channel, you know, on TV. Actually, our business is behind the scenes. So it's carriage fees from platforms that have our channels. It's advertisers and sponsorships. It's content and content sales to other channels and so on. But that's changing dramatically because as much as we consider ourselves a media company and have considered ourselves a media company, we're not there until we are where everybody is, until we're on your device 24/7. This is the universal remote control of our lives, and we, just like all the companies out there, you know, we want to be there in a way that fits the lifestyle, fits millennials' lifestyles. We're not going to come and pound it on your head. We want to be there when you need us, when you want, you know, the great music content and all that stuff. So for us, we've undergone a digital transformation. And frankly speaking, it's been painful, right? Because for 7 or 8 years, we were producing TV channels, right? And now, changing that mindset of, you know, of having editors and all that, we still have some of those things, but until we are truly, our DNA is transformed, and that means changing people, changing structure, that's, you know, where we start to see a real impact on the business. So we're moving a lot more to the business, I guess in the traditional terms, more to a B2C model, right? Where whether it's subscription for content, subscription for our channels, video on demand, but that subscription model where consumers are buying from us, that's dramatically shifting what our business is. We used to have, you know, 150 customers, now we have 150 million.
Ndidi Onwelele, founder Leap Africa and co-founder ACE, in her remarks said, her company is gradually moving to e-platforms, which provide online interaction. Onwelele urged government to make financial services easier, adding that there are many youths out there who cannot afford data and don't even know how to maximize internet usage.
Dear millennials, who are not on social media because they can't afford it. And we still have that. And in fact, the last time I was at Lagos Social Media Week, I said that there was another Nigeria that was not in this room. So I want us to remember that, because if 70% of our population still lives on less than $1 a day, not everybody, they can afford media, social data once in a while, but not all the time. And so financial services also has to remember that those group of people with literacy rates of 50%, if 50% of our population is still illiterate, what are we doing to make it easy for them to get online and to use financial services quickly? And that means that we still have to go to them. When I mentioned that over 5 years ago, CNN actually said, Ndidi, after the social media week, let's see this other Nigeria. And they profiled one of the young people who we took them to see, and she was on CNN and got a full scholarship to go to a university in Nigeria, just from social media week. But it just shows us that we shouldn't forget these people. So I want to mention that. In terms of specific financial literacy skills, I think that there's still a real fear and trust of banking. And I like the point that was made by the MTN guy. It's about relationships. It's about who you know, it's about what your friend says, and it's about who you trust. And what we see over and over again is that a lot of young people still are a bit wary of traditional financial institutions. And they might trust an MMM before they trust a financial institution. And the question is, what can we do to bridge that gap between what they know and what they can deliver? And the last thing I'll say is I'm fortunate to be one of the hosts of the Fidelity SME Forum. And what we're seeing is so many young people who have been able to leverage social media to build very successful businesses. And I just am amazed every single time, every Tuesday on the show. How many of you listen to the Fidelity SME Forum? All of you need to start listening. Every Tuesday on the show, we have young people from all over Nigeria who have started businesses and who are using social media to drive change. So it's critical that we also think about how we link them up to each other, but also to traditional financial institutions, because many of them have also sidestepped the traditional financial institutions. Thank you.
Oluwale Oyeniran of Technology and Digital Deloitte and Touch said, the fundamental of the discourse is behavioral pattern of the millennials. A millennial wants to be empowered. He said technology comes with conversation, and you must understand what a millennial wants. He added that millennials are game changers and are beginning to make impact in the society.
The idea of millennials came about around the year 2000. The concept was anyone who's come of age by that time was a millennial, coming of age at the turn of the century. So that captures people who were born sometime in the 80s or 90s, thereabouts. So strictly speaking, the millennial band is people within the range of age of probably like 18 to mid-30s today. Very young and not so young people. And the idea is, as a group, came up questioning everything. That's why they're also called Generation Y. And that's going to be a big theme around the things that we're seeing around millennials today.
Accessible to customers. He added that digital technology holds an enormous opportunity for greater financial inclusion. He also said that the world has gotten to the stage where you have to recruit millennials to serve millennials. However, he said there are negative parts of being a millennial, adding that being a millennial does not mean etiquette should go to the wind. Millennials take things for granted, and this is not too good, an attribute for growth.
Just came here to say, who feels it knows it. I cannot provide financial services to you if I don't understand the market preferences, your buyer needs and buyer values as millennials. And that's why it's important that even in recruiting, we have to recruit your life to serve you. Bolahan has told you what we're doing about hiring about 34 people just for digital training. By the way, if you notice the profile of our staff recently, you would see that we are deliberately connecting with the millennials. We do. And that's why we're supporting initiatives like this one. So when I say I'm a millennial, it's because it's important for us to come to where you sit and begin to provide those services. But with caution, Mo has said it all. There are negative parts of being a millennial that all of us here need to watch. But before I talk about that, I'll tell you that even parenting these days requires that you have to understand how your millennial children are thinking. These days we negotiate with our children. My son is in a school he does not like. He just turned 11. He's in Loyola Jesuit College. And every day you go to visit him, he says, "Daddy, I want a conversation with you." Who are you to converse with our parents in your days? Your father would, in fact, after flogging 6 strokes, he would write down and say, "You have 6 more. If you dare misbehave again, I'll flog the remaining 6. But you don't do that with millennials. We negotiate with you. Because now you know what we knew, or now you know what we don't know. So I said to him, "Yeah, I want to move you from this school, but let's have a deal. Spend first year here, then we'll talk about your living so that we don't waste the money we have paid." He said, okay. You know why I'm negotiating? Because I know that everybody who survived the first year, second year in that school does not want to leave. But if I had told him, "You must stay here," the guy would deliberately fail his exams. So being millennial does not mean etiquette should go to the winds. It does not mean you should ruin depositors' funds, because that's what you're doing. Banking is a business of trust. We're holding money in trust for depositors. If you see a bank with 1 trillion naira, for instance, in assets, probably only 20% of that is owned by shareholders. The remaining 800 billion is owned by you here, depositors. So we are actually, custodians of other people's business. So you don't come and say you're a millennial, then you don't obey rules. Okay, Hall. So on that note, I welcome you all, and I say to you, keep banking with Fidelity, keep trusting that Fidelity will do even more for millennials. Thank you.
A session of video and photographs ensued as the event was brought to an end. From Biscom Communications, we commend Fidelity Bank PLC for its commitment geared towards the youths in the society.